This evening we'll chant from the third chapter, verses 10 through 20. Chapter 3, verses 10 through 20. Starting with the introductory verses. Ārthāya pratibodhitāṃ bhagavata nārayanena svayam vyāsena gratitāṃ purānamunina madhye mahābhāratam advaitāṃ mritavarshiniṃ Bhagavatīṃ aśṭādashaധ്यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वाम् अनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् सह यज्ञा प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वम् एष गोष्ठिष्टकामधु देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवा दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः निर्दत्तान् प्रदायैभ्यो यो भुङ्क्ते स्तेन एव सः यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात् अन्नात् भवति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्नसम्भवः यज्ञात् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्मसमुद्भवः कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षरसमुद्भवम् तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम् एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयतीह यः अघायुरिन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यादात्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टस्तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो नाकृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदार्थव्यपाश्रयः तस्मादसक्तसततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पूरुषः कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि। So tonight we'll continue where we left off last time in the third chapter. We had come to we'd finished the 16th verse in the third chapter and are to begin on the 17th. So the context of what we're studying now is where Sri Krishna, after in the second chapter speaking about the highest truth, the highest realization, the realization of the highest state when one is absorbed in the absolute, absorbed in God. When the drop disappears into the ocean, but not really disappears, but becomes the ocean, is identified with the ocean. But now in chapter 3, he comes back to the topic of karma yoga, because again, Arjuna had asked at the beginning of the question, that why is it that you confuse me? You engage me in this terrible battle, and yet you tell me that the highest state is to be unattached and to lose oneself in the absolute, where one is freed from action altogether. So tell me for certain that one thing which I need to do. So then Sri Krishna begins to speak about the necessity of action. How nobody can be without action even for 1 second. Nahi kashti kshanamapi, not even for 1 second. Jatu tishtatya karmakrit, can remain without action even for 1 second. So therefore you must engage in action, but you must know how to engage in action. And then he says that in what we discussed last time, that together with work, the Lord Brahma, the Creator, Saha Yajna Praja Srishtva, together with the living beings, he created yajna, sacrifice. So the idea of sacrifice is fundamental to life itself. The Vedic idea is that the world is created out of sacrifice. This universe is created out of sacrifice, the sacrifice of the unitary being into multiplicity, sacrifices its unity into multiplicity, and everything in this universe takes part in the nature of sacrifice. So both at the cosmic level and at the individual level, the nature of the universe is sacrificial. And so here, of course, is a point of connection between the Hindu tradition, the Vedic tradition, and the later Hindu tradition, and the Christian tradition also, where sacrifice is a fundamental idea of the nature of the divine and the nature of reality. In fact, one of the ideas of the Trinity is that the three persons of the Trinity are constantly sacrificing themselves into each other, that there's a constant flow of energy between the three persons of the Trinity. So in the Vedic worldview and the subsequent Hindu worldview, also the nature of the universe itself is sacrifice. So then he goes on to explain in what we continued with last time, that annad bhavati bhutani, out of that living beings are produced out of food. That is, it's out of food that all of us live. Without food, no living being can live without food, beyond a certain point, of course. Some beings can go for months without food in hibernation. Snakes can go for a long time without food also. But eventually every being, whether it's bacteria, fungi, plant, animal, everything needs food. And so food is the basis of life. The food comes from rain. Parjanyad anna sambhavaha. Out of rain comes food. Out of sacrifice, again, was the idea, the ancient Vedic idea. Out of sacrifice comes the rains. Through properly performed sacrifice, the rains come in time. Much like as I said last time, the Hopi Native Americans, the Hopi had that idea, and still have that idea, that the universe depends on the proper and timely performance of the ceremonies for the universe to remain a cosmos. If the ceremonies stop, then the universe begins to decay into chaos. And so that was the Vedic idea as well. And that sacrifice comes out of karma, that is the actions that are prescribed in the scriptures. Out of the actions prescribed in the scriptures comes sacrifice. And the karma, the actions prescribed in the scriptures, comes out of the Creator himself. That is, the Creator himself. Of course, Madhusudana interprets Brahma as the Veda out of the scripture. So whether you take Brahma as the scripture or as Brahma the Creator, it doesn't matter. It comes to the same thing. That action, scripturally prescribed action, comes out of the Creator, who is the source of the scripture. And so then the last verse we did, Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayorindriyaramo mogham partha sajivati. So Evam pravartitam chakram, the wheel of life which has thus been set in motion, nanuvartayati hayaha, who here does not participate in that wheel of life, that is between the Creator and sacrifice and rain, the production of food, and out of food living beings, one who doesn't participate in this sacrificial nature of life, this wheel of sacrifice, aghayor indriyaramo, that indriyaramo, that person who delights only in the senses, aghayor, his life is one of sin, mogham partha sajivati, and useless is his life, in vain does he live. So the person who lives only for himself or herself, the person who only seeks to delight in the senses but doesn't participate in the sacrificial nature of life, who doesn't give back to the universe, such a person leads a worthless life, and their life is one of sin. Here the translation is, O Partha, that is Arjuna, he who does not follow here the wheel thus set in motion is of sinful life, aghayuhu. Deriving pleasure from the senses, indriya rama, he lives in vain, bhogam partha sajivati. So again, this idea that if we receive, we have to give back. Swami Vivekananda used to say that the universe gives you so much, you must constantly give back. You must constantly be in a giving mode. That if you give, then that flow of life continues within you. But if you receive and try to hold on to it, then what you have stagnates, like water which is not allowed to flow. And so there must be a constant flow through us. We receive money, we receive food, we receive air, we receive emotional support, we receive entertainment, we receive roads, we receive the mail, we receive so many things produced by so many people in society. And so we must give back. We can't just receive, we have to give back. And as I said last time, in the modern world, where many of the social structures that were present in the Vedic times are no longer present, even in India, that are all broken down, we have to find new ways of seeing our life as a sacrifice. And as I said then, as I said last time, taxes themselves should be as a sacrifice, seen as a sacrifice. If I want to use the roads, if I want to receive municipal water, if I want to be connected to municipal sewage, if I want to be protected by the police when someone comes to harm me, if I want the firemen to come when my house is on fire, then I can only expect that if I'm giving back to society. I can't just receive, I have to give back. Now that doesn't mean that people who are too poor to pay taxes, that they should find some way to pay taxes. No, that's part of the system, and it should be part of the system, that those who are not able to take care of themselves, that society will take care of them. That's part of the social contract, should be part of the social contract. But that also is giving back. And as I said last time also, one of the best things that we can do for elderly people who are no longer able to be active, those who are in advanced age and no longer able to be active, is to let them know how much they are valued. That just by the very fact that they are part of the family, part of society, that their experience, their wisdom is valued. And so everybody needs to have this sense of contributing. If we don't have a sense of contributing, then life weighs heavily on us and we feel that we're useless, we're burdened to society. Once even Swami Turiyananda, the great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, one of the great disciples, he was during his wandering days as a wandering monk, before he had come to America, he began to feel depressed. He began to think that everybody is contributing something to the world, but here I'm only begging for my food and just meditating for myself. I'm not doing anything for the greater good. And he began to feel very unhappy about himself. And then he suddenly had a wonderful vision in which Sri Ramakrishna, his teacher who had passed away, Sri Ramakrishna showed him in the vision that he began to expand larger and larger, and until the whole universe he saw within himself. And then he realized that no, the person who has sacrificed everything, sannyasi who sacrificed everything for the whole world, then they are the great benefactor to the world. That is a true sannyasi, not just somebody who takes the ochre cloth, but somebody who's a true sannyasi, as he certainly was. He suddenly saw that no, that his life was not useless and was not a burden on society. Now you may think, well, that's strange, a great person like Swami Turiyananda, how could he fall into such things? But no, that happens. That happens. You find that Sri Ramakrishna sometimes would be in the state of a child and would be worried about things. Swami Vivekananda, how many difficulties he had to face and how many doubts he had to face as well. And yet a part of them was beyond all of that. But the human side of them had to suffer. So that's where we came to last time, and now we take up verse 17. After talking about those who have to participate in the sacrificial nature of life, have to participate in work, have to give back to society. And as I explained last time, the 5 traditional sacrifices that the householder is expected to do every day. Aside from them, what about others who are absorbed in the highest truth? So it says, Yastvatma ratireva syad atma triptascha manavaha atmanyeva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. Yastu atmarati eva syad atma triptascha manavaha atmani eva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. So yastu, he who, that man, manavaha, who atmaratihi eva syad, who indeed delights in the self. We delight in everything but the self, that is the higher self, the Atman. We delight in food, we delight in entertainment, we delight in everything, comfort. But for the one who delights in the self, who has realized delight in the self, Atma triptascha manavaha, that man who is satisfied, who has his cravings satisfied in the self. Atmanyeva cha santushta, and he who is content in the self, tasya karyam na vidyate, he has no duty whatsoever. There's nothing for him to do. Karya, of course, means that which should be done. So tasya, his, karyam, thing which should be done, that is duty, na vidyate, doesn't exist. So one who has attained to the state where they delight in the self, we delight in the objects of the senses and in mental pleasures as well. We delight in sensory and mental pleasures both. And atma triptascha, one who is satisfied in the self. That is, the self is the satisfaction of all of his cravings. So we delight in the senses, and we're satisfied when we obtain and consume objects of the senses, or mental delights also. The higher a person is, the more they delight in mental things. So we get to the objects of delight and are satisfied. Atmanyeva cha santushta, and who is contented in the self alone. So delights in the self, is satisfied, that is, they satisfy their cravings in the self, and they're completely contented, that is, there's nothing else that they want. We get delicious ice cream, and our craving for ice cream is satisfied, but we want something else, some other thing also. We want a pretty object or something else we want to go out and buy. But the person who is completely contented, that is, all of the cravings of all types have been satisfied. So it said back in the second chapter, towards the end, Apuryam Apuryamanam achalah pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sashantim apnoti nakama kami. That is verse 70 in chapter 2. That person attains to peace, into whom all desirable objects enter in the same way as the waters flow into a sea, which remains unchanged when being filled up from all sides. Not so one who is desirous of objects. So it's describing someone who has attained to the highest perfection and is satisfied in reality alone. They need nothing else. The objects of the senses come into their senses just like the water of the rivers flow into the ocean, but the ocean doesn't change. The ocean maintains a steady state. And so the person of realization, the experiences of the senses flow in through the senses, but their heart is like an ocean. It's unchanged by that. And so it's talking about such a person here, the Atmarati, one who delights in the self. So one who delights in the self is one whose joy comes from the self. And again, satisfaction is something satisfaction is different from the joy that we get from a sense object. Satisfaction means I've had enough. I feel good. So one who has, whose sense of satisfaction comes from the self, and whose sense of contentment comes from the self. Contentment again meaning that all desires have been satisfied. So that person who rejoices only in the self, and is satisfied only with the self, and is contented only in the self, for such a one there is no duty to perform. So the idea here is that there is a state beyond duty. There is a state beyond duty, which is good, because if duty were eternal and permanent, then it would weigh very heavily on us. Duty is a stage we go through, and those of us who have a sense of doership, karta, kartritva, the sense of agency, the sense that I am an agent, I am the doer of actions, and bhoktrutva, the sense of enjoyership. I do my actions and I enjoy the fruits of my actions. All of us who are in the state the state where we have the sense of agency and enjoyership, we have duty. We all have duty. And without performing our duties, then we're thieves, as Sri Krishna said in the lesson last week. That we're thieves, stena eva saha. Such a one is a thief if we don't do our duty. But that is the middle state. The brute is one who has no sense of duty because they take no responsibility for anything. And the realized soul has no sense of responsibility because they have no sense of doership. They realize the highest truth. They see the whole universe and everything within the universe within themselves. They find their being one with the very being of God, who, as Sri Krishna will say, has no sense of duty. Sense of duty means something I have to do. There's a sense of compulsion, that I must do this. As long as I have that, I have to fulfill my duty. I can't get out of it. If I try to get out of it, then I'm a lesser person. But the goal is not to remain there. The goal is to come to a point where we realize that I'm absolutely free. There's nothing left for me to do, nothing that needs doing. The Buddhists have a beautiful saying, which was said originally of the Buddha and later of all of those who attained to Buddhahood or Arhathood, that he had done that which needed to be done. That the Buddha had done that which needed to be done. That is, he had realized the highest truth. That's the final thing that we have to do. But once we've done that, then there's nothing else that needs to be done. What happens after that? You still see someone like the Buddha, someone like Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and countless saints of all different traditions who have attained to a very high state, or the highest state of union. You still see them acting, but they have no sense of being the doer. You still see them eating, but they don't have the sense that I am the eater and I am the enjoyer of the food. They see all of that as happening through the motions of Prakriti, through the motions of nature. But they see themselves as the ocean itself, not as the waves on the surface of the ocean. So that one who rejoices only in the self and is satisfied only with the self, and is contented only in the self, for such a one there is no duty to perform. So that's where we want to go. Then whatever is done in freedom, not through compulsion, So we have to understand this when we read Swami Vivekananda, where he says that duty is the midday summer sun which scorches the very life of man. Now, Swamiji wasn't saying to us ordinary people that forget about your duties and just follow your bliss, forget about the things you need to do. If you have children, if you have a wife or husband, just forget about them, because better just to go follow your bliss and what you need to take care of them for. No, he's not saying that. He's saying that in the highest sense there is no duty. So even here, if we can do what we have to do, not with the sense of duty, not with the sense that I have to do this, but with the sense that this is here to be done, and so it's done. But I do it out of a sense of freedom. That's a difficult thing to understand, even more difficult to do, but Swamiji tells us to try to do that. To give, he says, give to the world what you have to give, but not out of a sense of compulsion. The sense of duty can become an extremely heavy burden. And of course we take on many duties which we think are duties, but there's really just things we wanted to do, and so we call it a duty, and then say that, oh, I'm responsible for this. Just because we want to be responsible, or we want to be important, or we want people to recognize us for all the things I'm doing. Well, no. Don't do things from a sense of compulsion. Try to learn. It's a lifetime's task. Try to learn to do things out of the sense of freedom. The things that I have to do, let me do them. But not because I feel the whip behind me. Not because I feel that the policeman is going to catch me if I don't do it. Not because I'm afraid of the IRS. Not because I'm afraid of society's blaming me. It has to be given, so give it. Give it out of freedom. Because eventually that's what we'll do anyway. The realized soul, whatever actions come out of the realized soul, they have no sense of doership, no sense of duty, no sense of compulsion. It's just the natural actions. But because they've realized their identity with God, everything in such a soul flows naturally and beautifully. Everything that they do flows from the freedom of God, with the love of God, and through this sense of freedom from agency. Just is a natural action which is proceeding on its own. And as Sri Ramakrishna said, such a person is like the expert dancer who takes no false step. Ordinarily in life, life is very much a balancing act where we're trying to balance many different things, and it's very complicated, and we find ourselves taking wrong steps all of the time. But a person who has attained to a high state, they no longer have to worry about that. They're like the expert dancer who never takes a wrong step. They have perfect balance. So that may be beyond us now, but it's important for us to know where we want to go, Then we can begin to approximate it. One of the ways of spiritual practice is to try to approximate a higher state, to understand what that higher state is, as far as we can with our limited minds, and then to begin to practice that. Shankaracharya says in his Gita commentary that those qualities which are spontaneously manifested in the great saints of the world, those become practices for us. We take those as practices. They're spontaneously manifested in the great souls, but for us they're practices. And then he continues the thought in verse 18. 17 and 18 are closely connected. Naiva tasya krite nartho na krite neha kasyana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kastidartha vyapashrayah. Naiva tasya kritena artha. So for such a soul who is Atmarati, who delights in the self, he has nothing that needs to be done. There's no object which he needs to get through action. There's no need for action, or there's no object to be attained through action. We act why, we work why, we do things why. As the bumper sticker says, I owe, so off to work I go. So all of us work for some need. We have some need, and so we do something in order to fulfill that need. But such a person who has become fulfilled in the infinite has no need for anything whatsoever. Na kritene na kaschana, nor does he have any ill effect from the non-performance of duty. So there's nothing that he needs to get from duty, nor is there anything which any bad effect which comes from non-performance of duty. Nachasya sarva bhuteshu kastirartha vyapashrayah. And there is no connection to any object for such a person. There's no connection with any object necessary, needful connection with any object for such a person. So for him there is no need at all for action, nor does he suffer any effect whatsoever here from non-performance of action. Because for this one there is no needful connection whatsoever with any object. He has no need for any object, no needful connection. And so there's nothing that he has to do, nor anything that he has to not do. That doesn't mean that he goes around doing things that he shouldn't be doing. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that in the Hindu system there are the vidhis, the nitya karmas, and the naimittika karmas. Nitya karmas, things that you're supposed to do every day. And naimittika karmas, those works which you should do on special occasions. And so it was said that you don't get any merit, no punya, no merit, from doing the nitya naimittika karmas, the things that you're supposed to do every day. Like in Vedic times, it was making offerings into the household fire and such things, or the Sandhya Vandanas devotions, the morning and evening devotions and things, the things that you are supposed to do every day by injunction of the scriptures. You get no merit by doing them, but by not doing them, you get demerit. And then naimittika karmas, things that you are supposed to do on special occasions. There were such things in the Vedic times, and then in classical Hinduism there were things like fasting on Shivaratri and observance of other rites and so forth on special occasions. Such a one gets no demerit by not performing those things. The idea was that you get demerit by not performing these things. But for one who has become Atmarati, there's no compulsion in either side. Neither things that you have to do, nor things that by not doing you get demerit. No, there's no demerit whatsoever for such a person, because they have gone beyond action itself. So again, that's a high state. That's not where we are, and that's why Sri Krishna before this was talking about the necessity to engage in sacrificial action, to be part of the sacrificial nature of the universe, because that's where we are. We have a sense of agentship, and so for us, action and right action, doing things properly, is important. But it's also important to know what the eventual ultimate goal is. That's where we want to go. So for him, there is no need at all for action, nor does he suffer any effect whatsoever here from non-performance of action. Because for such a one, there is no needful connection whatsoever with any object. Such a one needs nothing. So then we come to verse 19. Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara. Tasmad, therefore, satatam, always, asakta, being non-attached, karyam karma, necessary action, samachara, perform. So therefore, always perform necessary action with an unattached mind. So we're in the stage where we have to act. Nahi kasti kshanamapi jatutishtatya karmavit. No one can remain even for one moment without action. As I said when we went over that verse a couple of weeks ago, that even saying, well, I'm just going to sit here on the couch and do nothing, that itself is an action. Daydreaming is an action. Refusing to work is an action. So we can't sit even for a moment without action, even if we try to. And trying to not act, we're acting. And so, therefore, asakta, being unattached, what is the way out for us who have to work? The Atmarati, the one who's delighted in the self alone, is beyond action. We're caught in action where we have to work. So how do we get from here to there? Asakta hyacharan karma. Karyam karma samachara. Asakta karyam karma samachara. Being unattached, do necessary work, perform all necessary action. So do the action that you have to do, but do it with non-attachment. It's attachment to the action, to the fruits of the action, that causes the problem. I'm doing this because I want to get that, and I'm thinking only about what I'm going to get out of the action. No, do the action because it's there to be done. Do it because it's there to be done. There's a beautiful song in Gujarati, which I don't know Gujarati, of course, and so I don't remember the song in Gujarati either, but by Narasimha Mehta, one of the great saints of Gujarat, which says that the sadhu, the good, and here it doesn't mean a monk, it means a good person. The good person of any kind never thinks, I have done something good. That doesn't mean because he thinks he's a sinner and he can't do anything good. No, it means that he never thinks, I've done something good, because he does that which is to be done. You help a poor person across the street who's having trouble crossing the street. You don't stand on the other side and say, look what I did. Look, I helped that old lady across the street. Aren't I great? No. What else are you going to do? What else are you going to do when you see someone who needs help? Are you just going to walk past them and not give them help? So no, if you give them help, you don't think, oh, I've done something good. What else am I going to do? So that's what Narasimha Mehta says, that the sadhu, the good person, never thinks, I have done something good. No, what else am I going to do? That's my nature. Like Sri Ramakrishna's story of the scorpion, that all of you know, that the sadhu saw a scorpion that had fallen into the water in a stream. And so he put his hand under the water and scooped the scorpion out and helped it onto the land. And before it left his hand, the scorpion stung him. I don't know how many of you have been stung by a scorpion, but it's terribly painful. I have been, here in Texas. Not here in Houston, but when I was in Austin for some time, many years ago, back in the early 80s. I was digging in the garden, putting my hand under a cement block when doing some landscaping, and without knowing it, there was a scorpion under there. And, oh, it was terribly. I've been stung. I was a beekeeper. I've been stung by many, many bees, countless bees, and wasps and hornets and other things. The scorpion sting is not comparable to those. So the sadhu was stung by the scorpion. And then the scorpion walked along the bank and then again fell into the water. So again this sadhu picked up the scorpion and put it on the ground. And again the scorpion walking along the bank fell into the water. So again he picked up the scorpion, and a third time the scorpion stung the sadhu. A passerby, seeing the whole thing, says, well, why are you being so foolish, sadhuji? What is this? The scorpion stings you? Well, why do you continue to help it when it stings you like that? He said, it's the nature of the scorpion to sting, but it's the nature of the sadhu to help. So that idea, that no, my nature is to help. I don't care what happens with the other. It's my nature to help. So again, without thinking of the results, being true to one's nature. So therefore, remaining unattached, always perform duly the duty that must be undertaken. Asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Asakta hyacharan karma, performing action with non-attachment, paramapnoti purushaha. Purushaha param apnoti. A person attains to perfection, attains to the supreme. By performing action also unselfishly, a person attains to the supreme. So here Sri Krishna is giving us the secret of karma yoga. That is, to do action that is necessary, action that is in front of us, but to do it with non-attachment. And that is the way to attain to actionlessness. We don't, as he says in the beginning of this third chapter, we don't attain actionlessness by not doing action. We attain it by non-attachment. And so here he gives a secret. Therefore, remaining unattached, always perform duly the duty that must be undertaken. For by performing one's duty without attachment, one attains to the highest. We attain to the highest by doing the action which is necessary through a sense of non-attachment. And there again, through non-attachment, we are acting out of freedom. We're not doing it out of compulsion. Compulsion comes when I'm attached to the fruits of action. And when I'm not attached to the fruits, I'm doing it just because it's there to be done. And because I have to be active all of the time, I can't be inactive. So let the body and mind be engaged in action, but without desiring the fruits of action. Just because it's the nature of things to be active. It's the nature of the body and mind to be active. So let them be active, but with non-attachment. And then in verse 20, Karmanaiva hisam siddhim astitha janakadayah lokasangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. Karmanaiva hisam siddhim astitha janakadayah. Janaka and others, Janakadaya, Janaka and others. That is the famous King Janaka of the Puranas, of fame in the Puranas and in many Hindu texts, including the Ashtavakra Samhita, the text of uncompromising non-dualism. Their Ashtavakra's disciple is Janaka. So the famous Janaka, the Raja of Videha, of the kingdom of Videha, sorry. Vaidehi is Sita, because she was the daughter of Janaka. So Janaka of Videha, Janaka and others attained to perfection, samsiddhim, astita, attained to perfection, karmanaiva hi, by work alone, by action alone. So Janaka and others, the great sages of the past, attained to perfection by work alone, by action alone. Not just by working, but by working with the proper attitude. So karma yoga doesn't mean just working. If just working were enough to give liberation, then all of us would be liberated, because we've all had to work. And the busiest people on earth would be the greatest karma yogis. So no, it's not just work, but work with the proper attitude. That is karma yoga. Working in the proper way, that gives liberation. So Janaka and other great sages attained to perfection through work alone, that is properly done work alone. Loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kartumarhasi, because you should also think about loka sangraha. Loka sangraha. The loka sangraha means bringing the world together, but it means the idea of the welfare of the world. Bringing the world into unity. That is, you should think of the welfare of the world. Loka sangraha here means the welfare of the world. Thinking of the welfare of the world, you should act. So Janaka and others attained to perfection through work alone. And you also, thinking of the welfare of the world, should engage in action. And then he goes on to explain why it is that thinking of the welfare of the world, you should act. So Swami Vivekananda also in modern times gave the same message. Thinking of the welfare of the world, engage in action. Atmano mokshartham jagadhitaya cha, for your own liberation and for the good of the world. Why should I think about the good of the world? No, because that also will bring you liberation. Thinking of your own liberation exclusively, as Swamiji said, you will go to hell. You're speaking figuratively, it doesn't mean you actually go to hell, but that you become more and more selfish by thinking only of your own liberation. Only let me get liberated and let the world go to hell. I don't care about anybody else. You become more and more selfish. So yes, seek liberation, but in conjunction with loka sangraha, with the welfare of the world, for the good of others. loka sangraha. So karmaneva hi samsiddhim astita janakaraya loka sangraham evapi sampashyan karatumarhasi. Since Janaka and others attained success along with action itself, therefore you surely ought to perform your duty also with a view to making people undertake their duties, that is for the welfare of the world, and preventing them from taking the wrong path. Here he's expanded loka sangraha into getting people to do the right thing and avoiding the wrong thing. But the concept is much simpler than that. Expansion, that's an expansion, but we don't need such an expansion. It's much easier to understand just with a view to the welfare of the world. Whatever is good for the world, whatever does real good for the world. So, then we come to verse 21. Yadyaracharati shreshtas tattarevetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. Yadyaracharati shreshtas tattarevetaro janaha. So shreshta yadyaracharati, what the best, what the greatest people do, whatever the greatest people do, tattad eva itaro janaha. That alone, the rest of people will follow. Whatever great people do, that becomes a model for the rest of society. Not as something they should do. It's a natural process that's what they do. That's what they do. Like the story of Sri Ramakrishna. I don't remember all of the Bengali to the story. It's more beautiful in Bengali. But the people at a Pandara, they're asked what it is that they want to eat, and they say, Babu Raja Kachi, that which the Babus are eating, that I want to eat, because it must be good. Even though the Babus have weak stomachs, and so they're having to eat sick food, but the common people think, well, if the Babus are eating it, it must be good. That's Babu food. So whatever the great people do, other people take that naturally as a model. So whoever we think are great, whether our idols are film stars, then we try to pattern our lives after film stars. If they're military heroes or if they are political heroes, then we try to model our lives after them. In fact, in Calcutta or in Bengal, I don't know right now, but for some years it probably must still be going on at the time of Durga Puja, which we're in right now at this very moment. In Calcutta and Bengal, where there are Durga Pujas going on everywhere. In every block, there's at least one and sometimes multiple ones in every block. Huge celebration in Bengal. But there became the craze to make Durga look like film stars, Bollywood stars. So instead of making Durga look like the Divine Mother, make her look like some famous film star. Because those become our idols. So whoever we think is great, if we think someone is great, then we think that they should be imitated. And so people will follow whatever great people do. And so Swami Vivekananda said in his rules for the Ramakrishna order, always think that to the public you are a representative of Sri Ramakrishna, because they will understand Sri Ramakrishna through you. So be very careful of your action because of that. So it's the same idea as here, that you should act in such a way that you become a model for society. And all of us in our small ways. When we're young, we have brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters maybe, who look up to us as models. And so for an older brother or an older sister, we have to be careful what kind of model we give to our younger siblings. For parents, it's important the model that they give to their children, because children will follow what you do, not what you say. So in everything we find the boss should, rarely does, but the boss should be a model to the employees of responsibility, of taking the work seriously, of sacrificing for the welfare of the company and for the welfare of the workers and so forth. That's not often done, but it should be done. And those companies are the best companies, and the companies where people are happiest working where the boss does embody some of those ideals. And so whatever a superior person does, others do that very thing. Whatever such a person upholds as authority, an ordinary person follows that. So yat pramanam kurute lokas tarunavartate. So sa yat pramanam kurute, whatever he takes as authority, lokas tarunavartate, people follow that. So whatever the great person takes as authority, that also we see. The great person, what they look up to, other people look up to that also as what should be done. So again, we all, whether we know it or not, all of us are teachers. We're constantly teaching others. People are constantly seeing our actions, constantly seeing the things that we do, the way that we do things. And so we're either teaching good things or we're teaching bad things. And so Sri Krishna is calling on us to be good examples to others, to be good examples. In 22, Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani. O Partha, name kartavyam asti. O Partha, there's nothing that needs to be done by me, kartavyam. Trishu lokeshu, in the three worlds. Nakinchana, there's nothing in the three worlds that needs to be done by me. Sri Krishna is speaking here as one with the divine, as speaking as an incarnation of God, speaking as God himself, the divine itself. That I have no duty whatsoever in any of the three worlds, nothing that I need to be done. That's an idea of God which is common in those religions which have a high idea of God, the Abrahamic traditions, Hinduism, etc. The idea that if God is perfect, and if God isn't perfect, God isn't God. But if God is perfect, perfection itself, be ye therefore perfect even as the Father in heaven is perfect. So if God is perfection itself, then God cannot have anything unfulfilled. There can be no unfulfillment in God. Therefore, the creation itself can have no purpose. If God had an object in mind in creating, I'm going to create because I want to do such and such, or I want to show such and such, or I want to accomplish such and such, then God is not God. God is not perfect. And so Sri Krishna is saying that I have nothing to accomplish in the three worlds, no duty whatsoever in the three worlds. Nanavaptam avapta na anavaptam avaptavyam. Nor do I have anything to be attained or to be nothing that's unachieved that needs to be achieved. Anavaptam, unachieved, which avaptavyam, which should be achieved. Vartha eva cha karmani, through work. So I have nothing unattained which needs to be attained through work. So in all the three worlds, O Partha, there is no duty whatsoever for me to fulfill, kartavyam, duty. There is nothing unachieved, anavaptam, that has to be achieved, avaptavyam. Still I am engaged in work. Vartha eva cha karmani. That is a different translation, and that I won't go through. I didn't realize that when I went through it earlier, but that's a somewhat strange translation. Vartha eva cha karmani, exists in work. The more straightforward translation would be that there is nothing unachieved that needs to be achieved, indeed, through work. So that idea of God being completely free from action. And, well, let me stop here, because there's several verses which continue this idea of the divine nature and how the divine still engages in activity, that Sri Krishna, the incarnation of God, still is active as an example to others. He says further on that if I don't engage constantly in action, if I'm still even for a moment, then the world will fall into chaos, because others will follow the example which I give. They also will give up action. So we'll stop here with this idea that Sri Krishna says that in the three worlds he has nothing to be attained. and nothing unattained that yet needs to be attained through work. So let me see if there are any questions or comments. Yes, Sanchali, up in front.
Maharaj, I have a kind of a weird question. So he's alluding to Janaka of Ramayana.
Yes.
So can you just elaborate a little on that?
Yes, well, Janaka, of course, was a Rajarshi, a royal rishi. They were the Brahmarshis, the rishis who were those who attained to perfection, living out in the forest, renouncing everything, living in the forest and meditating. But Janaka was an example of a king who attained to perfection while doing all of his work in the world. And so King Janaka didn't have the luxury, you could say, of going out of the forest and spending all of his time in meditation. While running a kingdom as an absolute monarch, as a king of a kingdom, with fighting off enemies and protecting the people and running the municipal affairs and so forth, in those circumstances he attained to perfection. So it's said that he attained to perfection through the path of non-attachment. There's the beautiful story in the Puranas about King Janaka, where he's walking through the streets of Videha, his royal city, and one of his ministers comes running to him and says, O king, come quickly, the palace is on fire. We must save what we can. Come quickly. And so Janaka continues walking very slowly. After a while, the messenger goes running back to do what he can. But then he turns to see if Janaka is following and sees that Janaka is just strolling at the same pace. So he comes running back and says, Oh Janaka, come quickly, the palace is burning, didn't you hear? Everything is being lost. Everything is being destroyed. We must try to save what we can. And runs forward, hoping Janaka is following him. Again, he turns around and sees Janaka is just walking slowly. And so he comes back and says, King Janaka, didn't you hear? The palace is on fire. Everything is being destroyed. Please come, please come. He said, what is that to me if a few sticks are burning? Meaning that that's all of his royal wealth, his palace, everything is being lost. But what is that to me if a few sticks are burning? That is, he had no attachment even to his royal palace. Now that doesn't mean that he had no attachment, that he didn't care whether people were burnt alive or anything like that. But no, he was talking about the palace, his wealth. He had no attachment to it whatsoever. So King Janaka is presented as the ideal of non-attachment in the midst of the royal kingdom, running the royal kingdom. So he is the ideal of non-attachment, the ideal of karma yoga. To live in such circumstances and yet to attain to the highest state, he is the example of one who did that. But it's not King Janaka alone. In the Upanishads, like in the Chandogya Upanishad, and I think in the Brihadaranyaka also, it said that this doctrine of the Atman, the realization of the highest truth, that was discovered by the Kshatriyas. It said that this knowledge, this vidya, belongs to the Kshatriyas, that even the Brahmins don't know that. The Brahmins were engaged with all of their rituals and sacrifices and rules and regulations and all of that. But it's the Kshatriyas who mastered the knowledge of the Atman. That is, the warriors and the kings who attained to that knowledge. It was the Raja Vidya, the royal knowledge, the knowledge of the Atman. And so that's the idea. Any other last question or comment? Nothing. Okay. On days when I leave a little time, then there are no questions. On days when I don't leave time, then there are all kinds of questions. Everybody's, oh, Swami, I was going to ask such and such. So that's the nature of existence, the nature of Maya. So let me give a closing chant and then I'll give announcements. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om. That infinite reality is full, perfect and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect and complete. From out of this fullness, from out of that fullness, this fullness has come. And when to the fullness returns, only fullness remains. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.